Welcome to your Saturday Reading Skills number 4. You'll start with reviewing the do now with Ms. Hudson. I listed out that B was 8 and C was 15. What two numbers multiply to 15 but add to 8? The factors of 15 are 1 times 15. But that is 16. No go. 3 times 5. Woohoo! I got it. So my factors here are x plus 3 times x plus 5. Final answer. Now let's head to B. B is negative 11. C, negative 26. What factors of negative 26, when I add them together, do I get negative 11? 1 has to be negative since C is negative. So let's start with 1 times negative 26. That's negative 25. Not going to work. Let's go to 2 since it's odd. 2 times negative 13. Oh, that's going to be negative 11. Woohoo! I have my factors of x plus 2 times x minus 11. Our answers for A and B. Note that these are our factors, not the zeros. Let's on down to 2. Describe the transformation made by each of the following functions. Use the word shift in your response. So horizontal shifts. Get a better pen. Okay. So we have horizontal shifts. If it's f of x minus 1, that's 1 unit right. This is notes. But if it's f of x plus 2, this is 2 units left. So f of x shifts 2 units, not 2, 5 units right, and you have a 2 here, so that's a vertical shift. When it's outside the parentheses, this means that it shifts 4 units up. If it was minus 6, it would be 6 units down. So it's 5 units right and 2 units up. For the next one, k of x only has a horizontal shift. Since it is plus and it's inside, it's the opposite. So it shifts 3 units left. Now to number 3. The seller ticket sells 115 tickets to movies. Some of these equals 150. Some of these were child and some of these were adult tickets. From that I can get, a child ticket, I'm going to put child equals $7.75, adult equals $10.25. The price. The cinema sold $147 worth of tickets. We're going to write a system which could be used to determine how many adult tickets, A, how many child tickets were sold. So up here I have a total of 150 tickets. If I were to add C plus A, I would get 150. So I'm going to do C plus A equals 150. Now I have a total cost. Unmultiply the price of the child ticket plus, Hudson should have written this a little bit bigger, so we'll just use this pen, plus 10.25 times A. There we go. This is our system we could use to solve. Now, you're going to follow these directions. Log on to Edpuzzle and select Saturday Regents Prep Skills number 4. Don't flip your paper yet. Watch the video and begin the do now. You should have already done that. Turn the page and continue watching the video. A little person is going to come and continue to walk you through the packet. So, annotate your multiple choice packet as the guy does in the video. 100% classwork grade comes from watching the video. I can see you annotating thoroughly and answering each question. You will return the packet at the end of class. It should be a positive last gradebook grade. It's in 4 days. I believe in you. You got this. Let's make every moment count. Page.
Here we go. In the function f of x equals x minus 2 squared plus 4, the minimum value occurs when x is what? So you could either do this one or two ways. One, realize that this is in vertex form already. Because if you have f of x is equal to x minus 2 squared plus 4, this is called vertex form of a parabola. So you could easily determine the vertex based off of this equation. So this in here, this represents a horizontal shift to the right because it is opposite the sign. So to the right by 2 units. And then the positive 4, that represents a vertical shift up by 4 units. So your vertex is 2, 4, and your x value in this is going to be positive 2. So that's why it is going to be choice 2. However, let's just say you didn't know how to do that. Go to your graphing calculator. Type this in. X minus 2 quantity squared plus 4. There it is. Menu, analyze graph, minimum. Click, click. Your answer is 2, 4. So your x value right there is just the number 2. And that is going to be choice 2. All right. Moving on to question 2. The graph below was created by an employee at a gas station. Which statement can be justified using the graph? So let's take a look at what's going on here. So this is gas sales. And this is the number of gallons and the cost of gas. That's interesting, though. Why would they? I would think that they would say number of gallons sold and then revenue earned. That's kind of a weird graph, but whatever. Let's just go with it. Choice 1 says if 10 gallons of gas was purchased, $35 was paid. Well, $10 of gallons of gas, $35 was paid. No, about $37 was paid. So that's not true. For every gallon of gas purchased, $3.75 was paid. So for every gallon. So if we take a look, okay, so what we need to do is we actually need to calculate the slope of this line. So this point over here, I could easily determine that this is the point 12, 45, and this point is definitely the point 8, 30, and this point over here is the point 4, 15. So I'm going to be using 830 and 415 to figure out the slope. So remember that your slope is your y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So this is going to be 30 minus 15 all over 8 minus 4. This will give you 15 over 4, which is equivalent to $3.75. So therefore, your answer is definitely going to be choice 2, because for every gallon of gas purchased, yes, $3.75 was paid. All right, question 3. For a recently released movie, the function y equals 119.67 times 0.61 raised to the x models the revenue earned y in millions of dollars each week x for several weeks after its release. Based on the equation, how much more money in millions of dollars was earned in revenue for week 3 than for week 5? So in other words, you're going to plug in 3 for this, and then you're going to plug in 5 for that as well, and just see which one works. So I'm going to call this function f. So I'm going to say, well, what is f of 3? Well, f of 3 is equal to 119.67 times 0.61 raised to the third power. When you plug this into your calculator, just take my word for it, you get $27.163 million. Now, if you plug in 5, you get f of 5 is equal to 119.67 times 0.61 raised to the 5th power, which is 10.107 million. Now, all you're going to do is you're just going to subtract these. So 27.163 million minus $10.107 million is equivalent to $17.06 million is the amount of revenue that is earned from this movie. And that's going to be choice 3. Number 4. Given the following expressions, which expressions results in an irrational number? Okay, irrational number. First of all, if you are adding two fractions, that is the ratio of two integers, this is a rational number. So I'm going to put big R. So that is rational. We're looking for irrational. 1 plus radical 2. Wait a minute. Radical 2 is an irrational number. When you add a rational and an irrational number, it will result in an irrational number. So that is correct so far. And how you could tell is if you just go to your calculator and take 1/2, 1/2 plus radical 2, you get an irrational number. So that definitely would result in an irrational number. Now, radical 5 is irrational, but if you take radical 5 times radical 5, that gives you the square root of 25, which reduces to 5. So this is actually rational. So that can't be it. Then 3 times rad 49, well, radical 49 is 7. 3 times 7 is 21. This is a rational number, so that is rational as well. So your answer is going to be choice 2, meaning that, choice 1, 2 only will result in an irrational number. Number 5, which inequality is represented by the graph below? So let's talk about this. This has a y-intercept of 0, -3. The slope is up 2 and to the right 1. So your slope is 2. This is a solid line, and it is shading above. Shade above. So we know that y is equal to mx plus b is the standard form of a line. Since this is an inequality, this is y has to be greater than or equal to. Greater than or equal to shows shading above, and it's solid. The slope is 2, x plus the b value of -3. That is the same thing as saying choice 2. Y is greater than or equal to 2x minus 3. And that is your answer. All right, number 6. Michael borrows money from his uncle, who is charging him simple interest using the formula I equals PRT. What? What kind of uncle is this? To figure out what the interest rate R is, Michael rearranges the formulas to find R. His new formula is R equals what? So basically all Michael did is he took I equals PRT and just solved for R. In order to solve for R, since all of these numbers are being, well, in this case, these are letters, but these do represent numbers. So all these numbers are being multiplied together. So you're just going to divide by PT on both sides. And then you get R is equal to I over PT, which is equal to, or the same thing as choice 3. All right, number 7. It's a weird uncle. Number 7, which equation is equivalent to y minus 34 equals x times x minus 12? Okay, so this is, I'm going to rearrange this for a second here. So x times x minus 12. Okay, so I'm going to simplify this as much as I possibly can by distributing that x first. I get y minus 34 is equal to x squared minus 12x. Then you add the 34 on both sides, right? So then we get y is equal to x squared minus 12x plus 34. Can this be factored by what adds to negative 12 and multiplies to give you positive 34? Unfortunately, I cannot think of any two numbers that multiply to give you 34 and add to give you negative 12. So that means we have to complete the square. We got to figure this out some other way. So completing the square. So remember how to complete the square. You take your numbers put them to one side, take your letters, put them on the other side. So we have x squared minus 12x plus something equals negative 34 plus something. We just move that over here. And now we figure out, well, what is that number? Well, all we do is we just take half the middle term and you square it. Take half of negative 12, square it, we get 36. So this is going to be 36 and 36. Now we could factor this by what adds to negative 12 and multiplies to give you 36. That is x minus 6. X minus 6 is equal to the number 2. And that is just x minus 6 squared is equal to 2. And we could subtract the 2 on both sides. So we get x minus 6 squared minus 2. That is equal to y. And that is the same thing as saying it is choice 4. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you do that question. So your answer for number 7 is choice 4. Moving on to number 8. The equation A equals 1300 times 1.02 raised to the 7th is being used to calculate the amount of money in a savings account. What does 1.02 represent in this equation? So if you don't know it by now, please do. A of t is equal to the principal times 1 plus or minus the rate raised to the t power. So if this in here is 1.02, well, it's just going to be 1.02 plus, no, I'm sorry, 1.02 is equal to 1 plus r. Now remember that this is increasing because it's greater than, this number right here is greater than the number 1. So that's why I'm using my plus sign here. It's not minus. It's not decaying, it's growing. So we're going to subtract the 1 on both sides. So we get 0.02 is equal to r, but r represents a 2% growth because we just have to take that decimal point and move it 2 places to the right. So this resembles 2% growth, which is going to be choice 4 for that question. All right, number 9. The zeros of the function f of x equals 2x squared minus 4x minus 6 are what? So all you do is you take this equation and you set it equal to 0. So before we do that, we have to factor out a 2. You're left with x squared minus 2x minus 3 equals 0. That 2 just drops out. Now you figure out, well, what adds to negative 2 multiplies to give you negative 3. That is x minus 3x plus 1 equals 0. T-bar it, you get x equals positive 3 and x is equal to negative 1. Your answer is choice 1. Pretty simple stuff. Awesome. Number 10. When 2x minus 3 squared is subtracted from 5x squared, the result is what? So whatever comes after the word from goes first. So we have 5x squared minus, in parentheses, 2x minus 3 squared. Now we need to expand 2x minus 3 squared. So we get 5x squared minus, I'm going to put this in a big bracket here, 5x squared minus, in parentheses, 2x minus 3, 2x minus 3. Then we distribute. So we get 5x squared minus, in parentheses, this is going to be 4x squared minus 12x plus 9. Now we got to distribute that negative 1. And from here, we simplify it to 5x squared minus 4x squared plus 12x minus 9. Continuing to solve, we then get 5x squared. No, I'm sorry, not 5x squared. We just get x squared plus 12x minus 9. And that is going to be choice 3. All right, how are we doing so far? Are we doing well? I hope we are. Moving on to number 11. Joe has a rectangular patio that measures 10 feet by 12 feet. He wants to increase the area by 50% and plans to increase each dimension by equal lengths of x. Which equation could be used to determine x? Well, first and foremost, what you want to do is you want to calculate the area before the increase, because he does want to increase the area. So the area before the increase is 10 times 12, which is 120 units. Now, the area after the increase is 120 times 0.50 for that 50%. That will give you 60. But remember, you're taking 60 and now you're adding 120 back on again, and you get 180. So 180 is the area after the increase. Now, he wants to increase each dimension by equal lengths of x. So therefore, the length, which is already 10 feet, he wants to add x to it. So that's his length. The width is 12, and he wants to add x to it. So your equation is just going to be 10 plus x, 12 plus x, and that's going to equal the new area of 180. We're looking for that answer, and that answer is going to be choice 2 for that question. All right, final question of the video. When factored completely, x to the third minus 13x minus 30x is what? So what you got to do is you got to say, all right, what is the order of factoring? Well, it's GCF followed by dots followed by the trinomial method. So GCF, I could take out an x because all of these terms have an x value. You take out an x, we're left with x squared minus 13x minus 30. Okay? So now we got to figure out, well, what adds to negative 13 and multiplies to give you negative 30? Well, that's just x. This will give us x plus 2, x minus 15. And that is your simplified answer. Your answer is going to be choice 3. All right, and that's how you do question number 12. Pretty simple. All right, that is the conclusion of this video. I hope it helped, and I hope it helped you in preparation. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down there below, and make sure that you visit my website at www.nysmathregionsprep.com for much more math content in Algebra 1 and future mathematical subjects in your future, and I hope to see you soon. Exponential, and then it says explain your answer. So let's take a look at the x values. Each individual x value is adding by 2 each time. Okay, you're adding by 2. Then all of a sudden on the right-hand side, you are decreasing by 2.5 each time. So decreasing by 2.5. So what is this? It has to be linear. So we're going to say this is linear because there is a constant rate of change of negative 1.25, so the slope remains the same. Now, how did I get that negative 1.25? That's just your change in y over your change in x. So that's just going to be negative 2.5 over 2, which is equal to negative 1.25, and that is the slope of this function. All right, that's number 25. Moving on to 26. Marshall claims that the graph below is a function. State whether Marshall is correct. Justify your answer. So in order for this to be a function, it has to pass the VLT, or the vertical line test. Does this function do, well, does this graph do that? Well, let's see. Pass the vertical line test. I don't see any problems here, but then all of a sudden there's a jump. So, and also, I got a little bit of a problem here. There are 2 values of x for this one, well, there are 2 values of y for one x value. So in this case, the x values repeat. This is x equals 2, and this is also x equals 2. So state whether Marshall is correct. Justify your answer. We're going to say that no, Marshall is incorrect because there are multiple values of y that map onto the same x value of x is equal to positive 2. You could also say at x equals 2, this fails the vertical line test. Vertical line test, since the x value repeats. And that is how you could explain your answer to justify why Marcel is incorrect. All right, moving on to question number 27. Solve the equation for y. All right, nice and simple. We are going to FOIL this out because this is written 2 times. Y minus 3 is equal to 4y minus 12. You're going to distribute these, so we get, let's see, we get y squared minus 6y plus 9 equals 4y minus 12. We're now going to subtract the 4y and add the 12. Subtract the 4y, add the 12. We then get y squared minus 10y plus 21 equals 0. And now we can factor. Well, what adds to negative 10 and multiplies to give you positive 21? That's just going to be x minus 7, x minus 3. No, I'm sorry. Why am I putting x's? I apologize. These should be y's. Y and y. So y minus 3, y minus 7, that is going to be equaling 0. You do your t-bar, x is equal to 7, and x is equal to positive 3. So to write your answer, you could just say that y is equal to the swirly brackets of 3 and 7. And that would be your solution to this equation. All right. Doing well so far. Let's keep. Cost of belonging to a gym can be modeled by C of M equals 50M plus 79.50, where C of M is the total cost for M months of membership. State the meaning of the slope and the y-intercept of this function with respect to the costs associated with the gym membership. So basically, you just need to know what is it showing here, because this is a line. That 50 is your slope. That 79.50, that is your y-intercept. So your answers are going to be that the slope is 50, which represents a monthly membership fee of $50. So in order to stay in the gym, you have to pay $50 per month. I don't even know if that's expensive. And the y-intercept is this. So the y-intercept, which costs $79.50, is the cost to join the gym as a new member. So when you go to, like, I don't know, Retro Fitness or Planet Fitness or LA Fitness or any of those gyms, you do need to pay some sort of membership fee to join the gym, and it could be, $79.50. So that's all the y-intercept is, and the slope is your monthly membership fee. And that is the answer to this question. All right, moving on to question 30. A statistics class surveyed some students during one lunch period to obtain opinions about television programming preferences. The results of the survey are summarized in the table below. Based on the sample, predict how many of the school's 351 males would prefer comedy. Justify your answer. So there were 70 people in this survey who were male that liked comedy. Now, of this sample, there were 105 males surveyed. Okay? It says, based on the sample, predict how many of the school's 351 males would prefer comedy. So you could either do one of the following things. You could either take 70 over 105, because that's 70 out of the 105 males that were surveyed, and you get a simplified fraction of 2/3, which is equal to 0.666 repeating, which is just the same thing as saying 66.6%. So 66.6% of the males of the school do like comedy. Now, they're saying how many of the school's 351 males would prefer comedy. So we need to take 66.6%, and you're going to multiply it by the 351 males in the whole school. Well, if you take that number and you go here, so 66.6%. By the way, the percent key is in the question mark, and you could click percent, times 351, and you get 233.7, so that's approximately equal to 234 people. So 234 students would prefer comedy in the school. Now, you could do it that way, or you could do it this way. That's one way. You could do it this way too. You could take 70 over 105, and that's, again, 2/3, which is 66.6%. Then you could just take the 2/3 times the 351 people, and you just get 234. So 2/3 of 351 is 234, which is just, again, same thing as multiplying by 66.6%. It's just another way of expressing this answer. That's basically it. So 234 students who are male would prefer comedy in the school. All right, moving on to question 31. Given that A is greater than B, solve for X in terms of A and B. We're going to get back to that instruction in a second. So first and foremost, I just want you to solve for X. So I'm going to distribute. So we get, actually, you know what? Yeah, that's good. So bx minus 3b is greater than or equal to ax plus 7b. Remember that you're solving for the value of x. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my 3b on both sides. We get bx is greater than or equal to ax plus 10b. Okay? I am now going to subtract ax on both sides. I then get bx minus ax is greater than or equal to 10b. Let's continue to solve. You could factor out an x, and you're left with b minus a is greater than or equal to 10b. Divide by b minus a on both sides. Oops. Now, you get x is what? I want to go back to what the instruction said, and this is why this is such a horrible, mean question. It says that a is greater than b. What that means is that your A value is greater than your B value. So this right here, that B minus A, be so incredibly careful. This is a negative number. B minus A is a negative number because if A is greater than B, for example, let's just let A equal 5 and B equal 4. What is 4 minus 5? That's negative 1. It's going to be a negative every single time. So this is a negative number. When you divide by a negative number, you have to flip the inequality sign. So x has to be less than or equal to 10b over b minus a. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is your answer. You have to be so careful with the instructions on what they give you. But that is how you do question 31. All right, last question of the part 2s. Question 32. Jacob and Jessica are studying the spread of dandelions. Jacob discovers that the growth over t weeks can be defined by the function f of t equals 8 times 2 raised to the t. Jessica finds that the growth function over t weeks is given by g of t equals 2 raised to the t plus 3 power. Calculate the number of dandelions that Jacob and Jessica will each have after 5 weeks. So all you're going to do is you're just going to take Jacob's function and you're going to take Jessica's function, and you're just going to plug in 5 for t. So we have f of 5 is equal to 8 times 2 raised to the 5th power. When you plug that into your calculator, you get 256 dandelions. Jessica is g of 5, which is equal to 2 raised to the 5 plus 3 power. That is g of 5 is equal to, well, 2 raised to the 5 plus 3, that's 2 to the 8th, which is 256 dandelions. So, based on the growth from both functions, explain the relationship between f of t and g of t. So, the relationship is f of t is equal to g of t for all values of t. Because the functions are I'm going to say the functions are defined as the same equation And if you want to now, if you want to justify, I'm going to show you the justification right now. But if you want to justify why it's the same equation, take f of t. F of t is equal to 8 times 2 raised to the t power. F of t can be rewritten as 2 to the third times 2 to the t power. When you have the same bases, you could actually add the exponents. So this is going to be f of t is equal to 2 raised to the 3 plus t power, which is then equal to g of t. Based off of this, f of t is equal to g of t. So it is, in fact, the exact same equation. And that is your answer. That is the relationship between the two. All right, moving on to the part 3s. The part 3s, here we go. Let h of t equal negative 16t squared plus 64t plus 80 represent the height of an object above the ground after t seconds. Determine the number of seconds it takes to achieve its maximum height, and then it says justify your answer. Okay. You need to know that the maximum height is the vertex. Now, what many people did is they set this equal to 0. No. If you set this function equal to 0, that gives you the starting launch time, and by the time the what is this, a rocket? No, okay, just an object. But if you throw an object, that's time t equals 0, and then whatever that number is for the other number that where this function's equal to 0, that's where the object lands after how many seconds. So we're not setting this equal to 0. We actually need to use the formula negative b over 2a. Well, what is this? Negative b over 2a represents the axis of symmetry. Know this formula. This is the axis of symmetry formula. Now, the axis of symmetry gives you the x value of the vertex, if you didn't know that. It gives you the x value of the vertex, because this is x equals negative b over 2a. So, I'm just going to read you my answer key. H of t achieves its maximum height at its vertex. Use the axis of symmetry formula, negative b over 2a, to find this x value. Great. So negative b over 2a, that's going to be negative 64 all over 2 times negative 16. That's going to be negative 64 over negative 32. That's going to be 2. So your answer is just going to be the object achieves a max height after 2 seconds. So 2 seconds. Let me just get rid of that. 2 seconds is your answer. Now, state the time. Okay, remember how I just said time interval before and I said don't set it equal to 0? Yeah, that's for this part. But now for this part, it says state the time interval in seconds during which the height of the object decreases. Okay, so you could either do this one or two ways. I like it this way. If you actually set this function equal to 0 and solve, you know that it's decreasing from the vertex to its ending value. So if you take h of t and you set this equal to 0, watch what happens. Negative 16t squared plus 64t plus 80 equals 0. I'm going to do this right now just to make my life so much easier. Menu, algebra, polynomial tools, find the real roots. Hold on one second. Menu, algebra, poly tools, find the roots of negative 16t squared plus 64t plus 80. Why am I doing this, folks? Because Trevor is too lazy to factor. So I want to find the roots right now. The roots are negative 1 and 5. So that means, folks, that this is going to be t plus 1, t minus... Wait, hold on a second. Yeah, t plus 1, t minus 5 equals 0. So that means that t is equal to negative 1 and t is equal to 5. These are the seconds, okay? Now, I just said that it achieved its maximum height after 2 seconds. It's decreasing on the interval from 2 to 5. From 2 to 5. Because if you were to draw a parabola, it's saying from 2 all the way down to 5. This is your decreasing interval. And if you don't believe me, graph it. Graph negative 16x squared plus 64x plus 80, and you will see from, let me just get up here for a moment. Oh, did I just do plus 8? It should be plus 80. My apologies. Okay, so I'm going to go up here to a maximum height of 80. Look here. Nope, I'm going to go a little bit more. 120. 200. Sorry, I'm just trying to get a window that's nice for us to see. Okay, so this is your height. Menu, analyze graph, maximum. Click, click. This has a maximum height after 2 seconds. And then after 5 seconds down here, look at that. That's 5 seconds. So it's decreasing on the interval from 2 to 5. So what we're going to say here is, in the explanation, we're going to say that the height of the object decreases during the interval 2 is less than t, which is less than 5. And to explain it, you could just say that the y values, the y values are decreasing as the x values are increasing. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is your answer to that part of the question. And that is your explanation right here. Erica, the manager of Stellar Beans, I don't know what that is, collected data on the daily high temperature and revenue of coffee sales. Okay. Data from 9 days this past fall are shown in the table below. State the linear regression function f of t that estimates the day's coffee sales with a high temperature of t. Round all values to the nearest integer. So what I have to do is I need to go to my calculator and I need to input these values. This is your x, this is your y. Go right to your calculator and start inputting this in here. Go to your list and spreadsheets, and I am going to type this in. So high temperature. So that's my high temperature, and this is coffee sales. You could label that as anything you want. So I'm just going to type all these in. You could skip this if you really want to, because this is a little boring. But if you want to watch me, by all means, if you want to follow along. So I'm just typing in all these values from my table here. So those are the high temperatures, and the coffee sales are these numbers here. I hope that I typed all these in correctly because I'm really not looking. I'm just typing in these numbers here. Alrighty, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do Control Doc, add a calculator, go to Menu, go down to Statistics, go to Stat Calculations, and we're working with linear regression. Do mx plus b. You could pick a plus bx. I don't like that. I like mx plus b because that is the equation of a line. Your x list is your high temperature, and your y list is your coffee sales, and then click OK. So these numbers you actually need to write down on your exam. So I'm going to go to the left here, and I'm going to write title is linear regression. Now, you don't need to write that down, but I do like to write that just to make sure that the reader or the grader of the exam knows what I'm doing, because this is all in the calculator. Now, your m value rounded to the nearest integer is negative 58. And your b value rounded to the nearest integer is 6182. That's a big number. 6182. So that means that your line, because it's asking you write as f of t, so f of t is equal to negative 58t plus 6182. That is your answer to that part. Then it says, state the correlation coefficient R of the data to the nearest hundredth. Does R indicate a strong linear relationship between the variables? Explain your reasoning. So go back here. You look at your R value, not R squared. You don't want R squared. You want R. Negative 0.94. Is that a strong relationship? Absolutely it is, because it's very close to negative 1. So I'm going to say R is equal to negative 0.94. That is your answer. That's stating it. And then you got to explain it. So R indicates a strong relationship because the value is close to negative 1. Or you could say that, or you could say that the absolute value of R is close to 1. Either one of those answers would be wonderfully acceptable on the Regents exam. All right. And that is how you do that question. Moving on to number 36. No, not 20. Here we go. A contractor has 48 meters of fencing that he is going to use as the perimeter of the rectangle. Remember, perimeter is you're adding up all the sides of the figure that you're working with. The length of one side of the garden is represented by X, and the area of the garden is 108 square meters. Determine algebraically the dimensions of the garden in meters. So the first thing that I want to do is I just want to draw myself a little garden here. So they're telling me that the area is equal to 108 square meters. Now, the length of one side is represented by X, and the width, we don't know what the width is. I'm going to represent that by Y, and I know that's going to be a little weird to understand, but we don't have anything. We don't have length, we don't have width, but what we have is area. Well, we know that the area of a rectangle is length times width. They tell us that the area is 108. Plug in 108. Your length is X. Your width is Y. Don't worry about it. X times Y, that's okay. X, Y. But I want to solve for this in terms of X. So I'm going to divide by Y on both sides. So X is equal to 108 over Y. Now, why in the world am I telling you this? You need to use the area formula to calculate perimeter. Let me show you how this works. First of all, in a rectangle, opposite sides are equal. So that's X, this is Y. Perimeter, remember what I said. Perimeter is the addition of all of your sides. So this perimeter is just X plus X plus X plus, X plus X plus Y is equal to 48, because there's 48 meters of fencing to use. Now, X plus X is 2X, Y plus Y is 2Y is equal to 48. But hold on a second, ladies and gentlemen. Didn't we just get the value of X to be 108 over Y? We need that, because you can't solve for two variables at once. You have to get rid of one of them. So what I said is, all right, well, they told me what the area is. Let's find X, and then we're going to plug this 108 over Y in for X just to solve for one of those variables. Fantastic. So let's take this. 2 times 108 over Y plus 2Y is equal to 48. So now we get, over here, we get 216 over Y plus 2Y is equal to 48. Now, in order to solve for Y, you need your least common denominator. These all have these two, this number and this expression has a LCD of 1. This has Y. So the LCD of all of these is Y. Now what you have to do is you need to multiply the top and the bottom by Y. The reason why, no pun intended, the reason why is that you need to multiply by what you need. You don't need to be multiplying this by Y because it already has a Y. So now we get 216 over Y plus 2Y squared over Y is equal to 48Y over Y. Now all the Y's in the denominator cancel. That's perfect because we're really looking to solve for this up here. So now we get 2Y squared minus 48Y plus 216 is equal to 0. factor out of 2. You're left with y squared minus 24y plus 108, and you set that equal to 0. Now you factor. What adds to negative 24 and multiplies to give you 108? That is going to be y minus 6, y minus 18. That 2 does carry along for the ride. T-bar it. You get y equals 6, y is equal to 18. That 2 cancels over here. Now, we just got our y values. Now, it's saying here, determine algebraically the dimensions of the garden in meters. Well, your y value can be 18 and 6. But the problem with this, ladies and gentlemen, is, are those your dimensions? Yes, they are. Because one of those values, which is like 18 is actually a dimension of the garden as well. So your answer is the garden is 18 by 6 meters. And that's it. If you take 6 and you put it up here, this could be 6. Now, if you take 18, no, I'm sorry, yes. If you take 18, that is your x up here. Because that's your length, that's your width. Done. It's over with. We got you have 2 y values. It has to be another one. So that's why it's going to be the garden is 18 by 6 meters. And that's how you do that question. Final question, 37. The Real Good Cinema is conducting a mathematical study. In its theater, there are 200 seats. Adult tickets are $12.50, and child tickets cost $6.25. The cinema's goal is to sell at least $1,500 worth of tickets for the theater. Write a system of linear equations that could be used to find the possible combinations of adult tickets X and child tickets Y that would satisfy the cinema's goal. So they want either 200 people or less. So that is going to be X meaning adults plus Y being the children has to be less than or equal to 200. That's your first inequality. And this represents the number of people. Could it equal 200? Yeah, you could have a full capacity, or it could be less than 200. Now, this equation over here, this is your money function, because we want money. This is your money function. So, $12.50 for one adult ticket, so $12.50 times X, plus $6.25 for the child ticket times Y, has to be greater than or equal to 1,500. Because why in the world are we going to stop at 1,500? We want to maximize. So it could be greater than or equal to 1,500, but they do want $1,500. So ladies and gentlemen, these are your systems that we need to now